Hello, this is my reading of the first short story from A Book of Magic Animals by Ruth Manning-Sanders. The first story is a short tale from Brittany, and it's entitled The Northwest Wind. Well now, there was a peasant, Fanchine was his name, and he had a little field and a little garden. Come springtime he sowed corn in the field and planted an apple tree in his garden. The corn sprang up, the apple tree blossomed and bore fruit. Fanchine watched the corn grow, he counted the apples on the tree. Come autumn he saw the corn turn golden and the apples turn red. He said to his wife, "Tomorrow I will cut the corn, and you shall pick the apples." But that night came the northwest wind, roaring and ravaging, and by morning all Fanchine's corn was flat, and his little apple tree was torn up by the roots. I tell you, Fanchine was mad. He danced with rage. He took a stick and set off to kill the northwest wind. And if he went fast, it was because his rage wouldn't let him go slow. But, fast or slow, it was all one, because he didn't know where the northwest wind lived. He was asking everyone he met, but that wasn't any use because nobody knew any more than he did. In the evening he came to an inn, and he had only a few pence in his pocket, so the innkeeper said he could sleep in the stable. And as he was lying down in the straw, something gave a heave, and there was a big monkey rubbing the sleep out of his eyes and peering at him. "Hello there," says the monkey. "Hello to you," says Fanchine. "If it's not too bold a question, what might you be doing here?" says the monkey. Fanchine tells him. And now Fanchine is raging again about nobody being able to give him a right direction to the northwest wind's house. When the monkey interrupts, "Well, I know most things I do. I know where the northwest wind lives and all. Could take you there too, I suppose, only it's a tidy step from here and my legs aren't shaped for long walking. But if you'd give me an heave up on your back now and again, I expect I could manage." So, Fanchine agreed to do that, and soon as ever it came dawn, the two of them set out. The monkey went scampering along ahead of Fanchine for a while, but by and by he sat down on the road and said his legs wouldn't carry him another step. So Fanchine heaved him up onto his back. Then it was "Gee up, my fine fellow," with the monkey playing rider-cock horse, bouncing up and down on Fanchine's back, digging his knees into Fanchine's ribs and taking hold of Fanchine's two ears, making out they were reins. Fanchine wasn't much enjoying it, as you may suppose. All the same, he put up with it. For a bit, and along they went, till they came to a place where three roads met, one straight and the other two others twisty. Fanchine was for taking the middle road, which was the straight one, but the monkey was for taking the right-hand twisty one, and he was pulling at Fanchine's right ear. "Stop it," says Fanchine. "Turn right," says the monkey. "Staton's the better word," says Fanchine. "Turn right," says the monkey. "I won't," says Fanchine. So the monkey set his teeth in Fanchine's right ears and bit hard. Fanchine gave a yell, tumbled the monkey off his back and set about him with his stick. The monkey gave a leap to a tree, broke off a branch and set about Fanchine. So there were the two of them, jumping around and round, whacking away at each other and neither winning, till at last Fanchine laughed and said, "Oh, really? I've it your own way," and lifted the monkey onto his back again, and took the road to the right. The road was soon all a dazzle of light, for it led to the mountains of gold, and on a plain beyond the mountains of gold stood the house of the winds. So Fanchine got there at last, and he strode up to the door, thumped on it and shouted, Northwest wind, where are you? You who stamped on my corn and flattened it, you who tore up my dear little apple tree, come out because I'm going to kill you." Well, The door flew open with a bang, and then, before Fan Xin could cry, "Ooh!" the northwest wind had got a grip of him and was whirling him in the air, right side up, wrong side down, blown about like any scrap of paper in a gale, and he might have been blowing about to this day if the monkey hadn't set his teeth in the northwest wind's leg and bitten with all his might. So then the northwest wind put Fan Xin down and said, "Well, I see we're the best three friends. I'm sorry about your corn and your apple tree. It was only my fun. But come into the house and I'll give you a present." So Fan Xin went into the house of the winds. All the other winds were asleep in there, lying on golden sofas. Their breathing rustled Fan Xin's hair and filled the house with a gentle sighing. But they none of them woke, which was a good thing for Fan Xin, who was walking on tiptoe and feeling rather nervous. The northwest wind took him right through the house into a garden at the back, where there was a little apple tree growing in a pot. "Here you are," he says to Fan Xin. "Take this little apple tree home and plant it. It is a magic tree, and it will not only give you apples, it will give you anything you ask. Ask it for something now, and you'll see." Well, Fan Xin was feeling hungry, so he said, "Please, little tree, give me something good to eat." Did you ever? Immediately the branches of the little tree were hung with fried sausages and pork pies and sweet cakes and bottles of wine. Fan Xin and the monkey set to and had a good meal. And when they couldn't eat any more, well, there wasn't any more to eat. Only green leaves and some small tight flower buds which might, by and by, turn into apples, or into anything else that Fan Xin chose to name. So then all was friendliness. Fan Xin thanked the northwest wind, and carrying the little apple tree set off with the monkey on his journey home. The northwest wind speeded them on their way by blowing behind them, but only gently, not to upset them. Towards evening they came to the inn, and the innkeeper, who wasn't too pleased to see them again, was about to hand Fan Xin the key of the stable when Fan Xin said, No, supper first," and marched into the parlour, set his little tree on the table and said, little tree, give us something really good for supper." Immediately there was the little tree laden with food again, roast meat and puddings and fruit and wine. The innkeeper gasped and stared. He ran to fetch his wife. His wife gasped and stared. They sat down to supper with Fan Xin and the monkey, and both agreed that it was the most delicious meal they had ever eaten in all their lives. Well, after that the innkeeper was offering Fan Xin his best bedroom, and Fan Xin said yes, if the monkey might share it. And the innkeeper even agreed to that. So Fan Xin and the monkey were soon lying snug on feathers, and they fell asleep immediately, for they were very tired. Fan Xin, the careless fellow, had left his little tree standing on the parlour table. So what did the innkeeper do? He carried that little tree out into his garden. Then he pulled up the smallest of his own apple trees, and having cut it and trimmed it into the shape of Fan Xin's little tree, he planted it in Fan Xin's pot and set it onto the parlour table. He had breakfast ready cooked too before Fan Xin got up the next morning, so Fan Xin hadn't to ask the tree for anything. And the long and the short of it was that Fan Xin set off home, carrying the wrong apple tree, and ordered it to give them a good meal. Excuse me. And when he got home at last, and showed his wife the tree and ordered it to give them a good meal, well, of course, nothing happened. So back goes Feng Xin all the way to the House of the Winds, and the rage he felt before was nothing to the rage he felt now. He went so fast that the monkey had to run to keep up with him. And when he reached the House of the Winds, he was stamping and shouting, "Ah, you rogue of a northwest wind! Come out, give me back all you have taken from me, or I will thrust my knife into your heart." Then the northwest wind came out of the house. He was laughing, and his laughter set Feng Xin and the monkey spinning around like tops. Well, laughed the northwest wind. "Lost your little tree, have you? And whose thought is that? Not mine, surely. But here's something else for you." And he gave Feng Xin a little clod of earth. "This clod," says he, "will become a big field, or a little field, or a field of any size you tell it to be. It will also produce any crop you tell it to produce. So be off home with you now, and take better care of my second present than you did of my first." Well, off goes Feng Xin towards home again, carrying the clod of earth, and with the monkey skipping along beside him. They come to the inn, and Feng Xin decides to spend the night there. So when supper time comes, the silly fellow, he takes the clod of earth out of his pocket, lays it on the table, and says, "Now become a little grass field just the size of this table, and let the first crop you produce be a good supper." Immediately there's the table covered with a growth of short grass, and on the grass a picnic supper laid out. Feng Xin and the monkey and the innkeeper and his wife eat and drink, and the innkeeper thinks, "Oh, it's easier to steal a clod of earth than to steal an apple tree." And steal that clod of earth he does. And in the morning, the clod that Feng Xin carries home in his pocket is a clod from the innkeeper's backyard. So, when Feng Xin boasts of it to his wife and lays it down in front of his house and says, "Little clod of earth, become a tidy-sized field planted with beans," well, that clod doesn't become a field of any size, whether big or little. "The northwest wind has deceived me again," yells Feng Xin, "and now I will kill him." He sets off yet a third time for the House of the Winds. This time he's carrying a pistol. And the first thing he does when he reaches the House of the Winds is to take a shot at the northwest wind, who was standing in the doorway looking out. What happened? The shot went clean through the northwest wind like going through mist. But the northwest wind didn't laugh this time. He was very, very angry. He was blowing Feng Xin up into the air and around and letting him fall, bump, and blowing him up again. And Feng Xin was taking more shots with the pistol, and the shots were going wide, and both he and the northwest wind were shouting and swearing, and the monkey, who thought it was his duty to stick up for Feng Xin, however foolish Feng Xin might be, had scrambled up onto the shoulders of the northwest wind and was biting his nose and pulling his long yellow hair in handfuls. So at last the northwest wind, who had had enough of it, and called out, Feng Xin, tell your monkey to leave me alone. If you'll promise never to come here again, I'll give you another present, and tell you how to get back your apple tree and your clod of earth." So then Feng Xin called the monkey off and put his pistol in his belt, and the northwest wind went into the House of the Winds and came out again carrying a little box. "In this box there is a river," said he. "You have only to lift the lid and say, 'River, river, come out of my box.' Drown whom you will, but do not drown me. And the river will come out and go on flowing and get wider and wider and deeper until you order it into the box again. When the innkeeper finds himself up to his chin in water, I think he'll be glad enough to give back what he's stolen. And now, goodbye to you, Feng Xin. "And I don't mind if I never see you again," says he, and goes into the House of the Winds and slams the door. So, with his little box in his pocket and the monkey for company, Feng Xin sets off once more on his way home. When he comes to the inn, he was scowling fiercely, and the innkeeper, with his guilty conscience, wasn't too pleased to see him. All the same, that innkeeper put on a bold face and said, "Welcome, welcome, my friend, Feng Xin, and has the northwest wind given you yet another fine present?" "Yes, indeed he has," said Feng Xin. "He has given me a little river to drown thieves in. So, I made back my apple tree and my clod of earth, or my river shall begin review." "I don't know what you are talking about," says the innkeeper. "I'm talking about my apple tree and my earth clod that you stole from me," says Feng Xin. "I stole, says the innkeeper. "Yes, you." Well, the innkeeper still doesn't know what Feng Xin's talking about, and he keeps on not knowing until Feng Xin loses his temper, takes the little box out of his pocket, sets it on the ground, lifts the lid, and says, "River, river, come out of your box, drown whom you will, but do not drown me." "No me? No me? No me, Feng Xin, no me," cries the monkey. "No my monkey, of course," says Feng Xin. So then the water began to trickle out of the box in a little stream, and the little stream became a big stream, and the big stream became a torrent, and the torrent became a raging river. The whole landscape was going under water, except for a little square of path where Feng Xin stood with the monkey. And that was dry and kept on rising above the flood that poured around it. The inn had disappeared under water except for one chimney, and to that chimney the innkeeper and his wife clung, screaming, "Help, we drown! Help, help, we drown! You shall have back your apple tree, you shall have back your clod of earth! Help, 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 we drown, we drown!" Then Feng Xin told the water to go back into the box, and the raging river began to shrink to a torrent, and the torrent shrank to a big stream, and the big stream shrank to a little stream, and the little stream shrank to a trickle. The trickle went back into the box, and Feng Xin put the lid on the box, and the box in his pocket. There was the inn now, just as it had been before. The innkeeper and his wife came down from the roof. The innkeeper ran to his garden and dug up Feng Xin's little apple tree. He hurried to fetch the clod of earth from the cellar where he had hidden it. He thrust both the tree and clod into Feng Xin's hands. "Take them and go!" he cried. "Take them and go!" Now, all was well. The first thing Feng Xin did when he got home was to set the little apple tree on the kitchen table and order it to give himself and his wife and the monkey a good meal. And they got their good meal. So, after that, Feng Xin took his clod of earth, sat it down in front of his cottage and said, "Clod, clod, become a red big garden full of fruit trees and flowers and vegetables and everything beautiful and useful." And no sooner were the words out of his mouth when, lo, there was the garden. Feng Xin went down to the bottom of the garden, took his little box out of his pocket, put it on the ground, lifted the lid and said, "River, river, come out of your box. Flow gently and brightly, my river, among rushes and willows." At once the water began to trickle out of the box in a little stream, and the little stream became a big stream, and the big stream became a bright, gently flowing river, with golden rushes growing on its banks and willow trees bending over their reflections in its quiet waters. After that, the days passed pleasantly for Feng Xin. When he was tired of working in his wonderful garden, he amused himself by fishing in the river. And the monkey followed him everywhere, carrying his tools, working at his side and baiting his fish hooks. So one day the monkey said, "Feng Xin, Have I been a help to you? Surely you have, my monkey. How many times have I helped you, Feng Xin? Feng Xin considered. Well, 3 big times and lots of little times. More times than I can count. Then goodbye, Feng Xin. You won't see your monkey anymore. Oh, my monkey, you're not going to leave us. Yeah, your monkey is going to leave you, Feng Xin. Feng Xin was hurt. He had grown very fond of his monkey. He began to grumble. I don't see why you need to go and do that, just when we've got used to you and all. But the monkey laughed and turned 3 somersaults, whiz, 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 so fast that Feng Xin felt giddy and shut his eyes. And when he opened his eyes again, what did he see? No monkey, but a little laughing boy without a stitch of clothing on him. Oh, says Feng Xin. Oh, who are you? Well, says the little laughing boy, I used to be your monkey, but now I'm your little son. If you'll have me, Feng Xin. Well, I was a baby. A fairy found me under a bush and took me home to live with her. But I was such a naughty, ungrateful boy that she turned me into a monkey. And a monkey you shall remain, says she, until you've proved as helpful to someone else as you've been unhelpful to me. So that's how it all came about, Feng Xin. Well, think of that, says Feng Xin. And my missus and I have always wanted a son. So he took the little boy by the hand and went in to tell his wife, and they were all 3 very happy. Thank you. The other stories will be recorded later.